15. Beautiful black actresses who hid their true gender until death. What if the world's brightest stars were forced to hide the truest parts of themselves just to survive? Behind the laughter awards and flashing lights, some of Hollywood's most beloved black actresses carried a secret they could never reveal, not to fans, not even to family. Their stories were buried beneath contracts, fear, and silence. Until now. This is not gossip, it's truth, finally unsealed. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear will change how you see fame, love, and freedom forever. Don't forget to subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence for more untold stories that history tried to erase. Marla Gibbs. Marla Gibbs, the timeless star of the Jeffersons, and 227 was more than the comedic matriarch America adored. Born in 1931 in Chicago, she rose to fame portraying sharp-tongued, confident women who challenged stereotypes with grace and humor. Yet behind that confident exterior, Marla lived with a secret that few suspected. While her public image reflected independence and professionalism, her private world was guarded, layered, and mysterious. Industry insiders whispered that the strength she portrayed on screen was drawn from real-life resilience, the courage to protect her truth in an era that punished authenticity. Throughout her long career, Marla never remarried after her early divorce, choosing solitude over speculation. But for decades, she was rarely seen without her personal manager, a discreet, well-dressed woman who quietly managed her schedule, accompanied her to events, and was often introduced as a lifelong friend. Behind closed doors, their bond went far beyond professional loyalty. In private circles, people described them as inseparable, sharing homes, holidays, and quiet dinners far from cameras. Official records later revealed that in her insurance policy, Marla had listed this same woman as spouse, a fact that stunned those who believed she had lived entirely alone. When Marla passed away in 2022 at the age of 91, the woman by her side handled every funeral detail from the casket to the memorial arrangements. No family members were mentioned in her obituary beyond distant relatives. Instead, the program highlighted her most trusted companion. Reporters who investigated her estate found no evidence of scandal or deception, only a meticulous plan that ensured her confidant would inherit everything. For those who knew them, it was the final proof of a lifelong commitment, one quietly nurtured under society's blind eye. The revelation didn't tarnish her image. It deepened it, revealing a woman who had quietly defied convention her entire life. Marla Gibbs' hidden truth stands as a reflection of Hollywood's silent struggle, a world where image mattered more than identity. She fought to be seen for her talent, not her personal life, and in doing so helped generations of black actresses believe they could stand tall even when the world misunderstood them. Her story reminds us that love in its purest form needs no validation or audience. Beneath the applause, Marla's truest performance was the quiet act of living authentically, even if she could only do so in the shadows. Florence Ballard. Florence Ballard, the founding voice of the Supremes, embodied both the glory and heartbreak of Motown's golden age. Born in Detroit in 1943, she was the fiery soul behind the group that redefined American pop music. Alongside Diana Ross and Mary Wilson, Florence helped turn Motown into a global phenomenon. But behind the stage lights and shimmering gowns, she lived a life shadowed by loss, betrayal, and silence. Records and close friends later revealed a deeply hidden truth. Florence's emotional collapse was not just about fame or fortune, but the unbearable weight of hiding who she truly was in a world that demanded perfection. During the peak of the Supremes in the mid-1960s, Florence's absence after concerts was often noted but never questioned publicly. Several members of the touring crew whispered about a mysterious female companion who always traveled with her. A Chicago photographer later admitted he had once captured intimate Polaroids of Florence, embracing this woman backstage, photographs that vanished just days later, allegedly confiscated by Motown executives. Those who knew her closely said this relationship was one of the few sources of peace in her turbulent life, especially as she clashed with management and struggled to maintain her identity while Diana Ross was pushed to the forefront. After Florence was dismissed from the Supremes in 1967, her life spiraled into poverty and isolation. Friends cleaning her Detroit home after her death discovered torn pages of a private diary hidden beneath a pillow. One surviving line read, "Only with her can I be myself." It was a simple confession, but it carried the gravity of a lifetime of concealment. Ballard's family-fearing stigma destroyed the diary, erasing the last tangible evidence of a love she was never allowed to acknowledge. For a woman whose voice once defined joy and freedom, her silence became her final imprisonment. Florence Ballard died in 1976, at only 32 officially of cardiac arrest, but her emotional wounds ran far deeper. The industry mourned her as a fallen star, yet few grasped the loneliness behind her smile. Today, her story forces us to confront a painful truth, the cost of authenticity in an unforgiving era. Florence's life was a song that ended too soon, but her courage to love even in secrecy remains one of Motown's most haunting legacies. Marsha Warfield. Marsha Warfield, the quick-witted comedian best known for her role as Roz Russell on Night Court, was a trailblazer long before most realized it. Born in 1954 in Chicago, she built a career in an industry dominated by men commanding every stage she stepped on with razor-sharp humor and fearless intellect. Yet behind her laughter was a silence that lasted decades, a truth she guarded fiercely in a world that wasn't ready to hear it. While audiences adored her sarcasm and confidence, few knew the emotional cost of maintaining that public mask. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Marsha's life off stage was strikingly private. She never married, never flaunted romances, and avoided the tabloids entirely. Rumors quietly circulated in the comedy circuit that she shared her life with another female comic, a woman who often accompanied her on tours and stayed out of the spotlight. Hotel staff in Las Vegas once recounted that Marsha booked a honeymoon suite under both their initials, a detail the press ignored at the time but later resurfaced among industry whispers. Friends described them as inseparable partners who shared homes, dreams, and decades of devotion that never needed public validation. Even as she conquered television from Empty Nest to The Marsha Warfield Show, she continued to live authentically on her own terms. In her later years, she quietly confirmed what many had suspected, that she had loved women all her life and simply refused to let that define or confine her. When she passed in 2022, tributes poured in, not just for her groundbreaking comedy, but for her quiet courage. Colleagues remembered her as a woman who laughed at fear and lived with grace. Marsha's story reminds us that bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the steady strength of living honestly in silence. She turned pain into humor and secrecy, into survival, paving the way for the next generation of Black performers to live truthfully and without apology. Her legacy isn't just in the jokes that made America laugh, it's in the freedom she helped create for those who came after. Esther Rolle. Esther Rolle, the unforgettable matriarch from Good Times, represented dignity, resilience, and maternal strength on screen. But behind her composed public image was a story of profound secrecy and sacrifice. Born in Pompano Beach, Florida in 1920, Esther was the 10th of 18 children in a Bahamian American family that valued discipline and faith. Her rise from stage performer to one of television's most respected Black actresses marked a victory for representation in the 1970s. Yet while millions saw her as America's mom, few ever glimpsed the guarded life she led beyond the studio walls, where affection and identity had to be concealed to protect her hard-earned reputation. During her early theater years in Miami, colleagues recalled one evening in 1965 that changed everything. At a dinner gathering, Esther was seated beside a local dancer, a young woman who seemed to understand her in ways no one else did. Their chemistry drew quiet stares across the table, and though nothing explicit was said, something unspoken passed between them. Days later, that same dancer appeared backstage during rehearsals, and from then on, she was a constant presence in Esther's life. Castmates from The Blacks remembered her frequent visits, her whispered encouragements, and the rare smiles Esther allowed herself when they were together. The relationship was never publicly acknowledged, but its shadow lingered throughout her career. Even after fame arrived with Maude and Good Times, Esther remained intensely private. Crew members claimed she kept a small framed photograph of an unknown woman in her dressing room drawer, one she would quickly hide if anyone entered unexpectedly. Friends said she turned down invitations to socialize, preferring quiet evenings at home, where she wrote letters and poetry that hinted at loneliness and longing. When she passed away in 1998 in Culver City, California, no romantic partner was mentioned, but those who knew her best insisted she had once loved deeply, a love erased by time and silence. Esther Rolla's story is not one of scandal, but of humanity. She spent her life shaping the image of proud Black motherhood while privately wrestling with the same emotional truths denied to so many women of her generation. Her life reminds us that the cost of success for some was the sacrifice of self. Beneath the applause, Esther carried her truth with quiet dignity, a secret love story that, though hidden, deserves to be remembered. Lynn Thigpen, with her deep, resonant voice and commanding presence, was one of the most versatile actresses of her generation, yet her personal life remained wrapped in silence until her death. Born in 1948 in Joliet, Illinois, she began her career in theater before breaking through on television and film. To millions of children in the 1990s, she was the iconic chief on Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, while adults admired her performances in The District Lean on Me and Taps. But off-screen, Lynn was a woman who carefully separated fame from vulnerability, guarding a truth that Hollywood was never ready to embrace. Despite decades in the public eye, Lynn never married, had no children, and rarely attended celebrity gatherings. Industry colleagues often noticed a quiet, constant companion, a woman who appeared beside her at premieres, stage openings, and even production tours. This woman, a television editor from Los Angeles, was neither a co-star nor an assistant, yet she was always present. Flight logs later confirmed that Lynn frequently purchased an additional unnamed ticket on studio-funded travel, and that seat was almost always assigned to her. Those closest to the actress understood that their bond went far beyond friendship. It was an unspoken partnership lived with discretion and tenderness in a time when openness could cost a career. On March 12, 2003, tragedy struck when Lynn was found lifeless in her Marina del Rey apartment at just 54. The coroner's report listed a cerebral hemorrhage, but one small detail startled everyone. The emergency contact listed on her medical file was not family, but the same woman who had shadowed her life. She handled the funeral quietly, avoiding cameras and interviews, ensuring Lynn's privacy even in death. To the public, she was a mystery woman. To Lynn, she had been the one steady presence through decades of performance pressure and isolation. Lynn Thigpen's legacy lives on through her artistry, but her untold story adds another layer to her brilliance. She stood as a symbol of intelligence and authority, while privately bearing the weight of forbidden love. Her silence was not weakness, but protection for her career, her partner, and her peace. In a world obsessed with appearances, Lynn's quiet defiance was its own form of power. Behind her calm smile was a woman who chose truth over spectacle, love over fame, and dignity over exposure. Roxy Roker. The trailblazing actress, best known as Helen Willis on The Jeffersons, shattered television barriers in the 1970s by portraying the first Black woman in an interracial marriage on primetime TV. Born in 1929 in Miami, she carried herself with sophistication, intellect, and quiet power traits that made her a pioneer for Black representation in American entertainment. Yet beneath her polished grace and groundbreaking public persona, Roxy guarded a private world that only a few ever witnessed. Those who worked with her remembered her as warm but fiercely protective of her personal life, a woman who understood that in Hollywood, silence could be the only safe space for truth. Her marriage to television producer Cy Kravitz, the father of musician Lenny Kravitz, ended abruptly in the late 1970s. Friends close to the couple later admitted the divorce stemmed not from infidelity, but from the discovery of a love letter handwritten, tender, and signed by a woman. The letter vanished shortly after, buried along with explanations neither side offered publicly. In the years that followed, whispers in New York and Los Angeles described Roxy's recurring appearances with a younger female journalist, always discreet, always away from the spotlight. Hotel workers recalled her using aliases when traveling and requesting privacy during late-night stays, a routine that became part of her guarded rhythm of life. By the mid-1990s, Roxy's health had begun to decline, but she continued to act embodying strength even as cancer quietly overtook her body. When she passed away on December 2, 1995, the world mourned a television pioneer. The funeral was intimate, attended by family, old friends, and a few unrecognized faces. Among them was a woman who remained silent throughout the service, standing slightly apart, yet visibly overcome with emotion. Insiders later claimed she was the same journalist Roxy had cherished for years, the one whose letter once nearly unraveled her marriage. Roxy Roker's life was a portrait of courage wrapped in elegance, a woman who broke barriers on screen and carried her deepest truths in private. Her story reflects the painful paradox of her generation, to be celebrated publicly for strength, yet forced to hide tenderness. She gave the world representation, but sacrificed the freedom to represent herself. In the end, her legacy is not only about television history, it's about love, defied devotion, unspoken, and a woman's quiet rebellion against silence. Madge Sinclair. Madge Sinclair, the regal Jamaican-born actress celebrated for her roles in Roots 1977 and Coming to America 1988, embodied grace and authority every time she appeared on screen. Born in Kingston in 1938, she began her career as a teacher before daring to chase her acting dreams in New York. Hollywood quickly fell in love with her commanding presence, her voice calm yet commanding, her poise unmistakable. But while audiences admired her elegance, few knew the quiet storm she carried in her heart, a secret love that would shape her life and follow her to her final days. Her early marriage to actor Michael Sinclair ended abruptly, and their split shocked friends who had seen them as inseparable. Later, Michael revealed in a rare interview that the real fracture came from emotional distance. He claimed Madge had love in her life, just not for men. After the divorce, whispers began circulating on film sets that she was unusually close to a nurse consultant she had met while filming Trapper John M.D. The two women were inseparable, arriving together, leaving together, and often seen sitting in a silver sedan at the far end of the studio lot long after filming had wrapped. Crew members recalled seeing them laughing softly in the car, hands clasped, never caring who might notice from afar. By the mid-1990s, when Madge's health declined due to leukemia, her family expected to stand by her side. But when they arrived at the hospital, they discovered that her legal next of kin, the person authorized to make all medical decisions, was not a relative, but the same mysterious woman. She arrived every day, stayed through the night, and signed every document as Madge's representative. Nurses recalled the woman reading poetry to her, brushing her hair, and softly calling her, "My love." When Madge passed away on December 20, 1995, the woman organized the memorial quietly, then vanished from public sight. Madge Sinclair's story is one of dignity, devotion, and hidden truth. She broke ground for Black women in film, commanding respect without scandal or compromise. Yet even as she portrayed queens and mothers on screen, she was denied the freedom to live her own love openly. Her final act, entrusting her life to the woman she cherished, was both her rebellion and her redemption. In Hollywood's history, few stories are as quietly powerful as hers. A woman who lived by her own code, loved without apology, and left behind a legacy of strength wrapped in silence. Diahann Carroll. Diahann. Carroll, often called the Queen of Elegance, was more than a Hollywood legend. She was a revolution in motion. Born in 1935 in the Bronx, New York, she grew up with the poise and ambition that would later redefine how America saw Black women on screen. When she starred in Julia 1968, she became the first Black actress to lead a primetime television series as a professional woman, not a servant. Her Tony-winning performance in No Strings and Oscar-nominated role in Claudine 1974 cemented her as both a beauty and a barrier breaker. Yet beneath the designer gowns and red carpet smiles, Dayahan carried a truth she never dared to say aloud, a love that could have destroyed everything she built. Throughout the 1970s, while the world saw her as a fashion icon and symbol of sophistication, Dayahan lived a quiet, double life. Insiders from the Los Angeles film circuit whispered about her private visitor, a female screenwriter who appeared at her Beverly Hills home during late-night hours. The two were reportedly inseparable, sharing intellectual debates, wine-filled dinners, and what one neighbor described as a connection too intimate to be platonic. During a 1977 film shoot, the same woman was seen leaving Carol's home early one morning, still dressed in the evening gown from the night before, a detail the press chose to ignore. Their companionship, though never confirmed, was the open secret among those who loved her most. In her 2008 memoir, The Legs Are the Last to Go, Dayahan made a cryptic remark that reignited old rumors. She confessed that love in all its forms is a complicated teacher, a line many interpreted as her quiet acknowledgement of the truth. After her death in 2019, a locked chest found in her Los Angeles home reportedly contained a collection of Polaroids and handwritten notes from the 1970s, showing her with unidentified women at private Hollywood gatherings. Though the photos were never made public, their discovery confirmed what many suspected, that Dayahan had spent decades protecting a part of her soul from a world too judgmental to understand it. Dayahan Carroll's story is not one of shame, but of survival. She lived with grace in an era that demanded perfection, carrying her secret not out of fear, but dignity. Her legacy as an actress, fashion icon, and quiet revolutionary reminds us that power often lies in restraint, and that some of the most beautiful lives are lived between the lines. Naya Rivera. Naya Rivera was more than just a rising star. She was a voice of a generation that longed to be seen. Born in Valencia, California in 1987, she began acting as a child but truly captured hearts as Santana Lopez in Glee. Her performance as a bold, proud lesbian teenager helped countless young fans embrace their identity, earning her praise as one of television's most influential young actresses. Yet the greatest irony of her life was that the character who taught others to live openly reflected a truth Naya herself was never free to share. Behind her dazzling smile and effortless charm was a woman quietly battling fear, love, and silence in an industry still hostile to authenticity. During Glee's peak, between 2009 and 2015, whispers circulated among cast and crew that Naya was romantically involved with a young female musician rising in Los Angeles' underground scene. Several people recalled seeing them together at artists-only venues in West Hollywood, laughing, holding hands, or disappearing into the night. One photographer claimed to have captured an intimate kiss backstage at a show in New Jersey, only for the image to vanish days later after he was allegedly paid to keep it quiet. For those who knew Naya personally, it wasn't scandal, but sadness. A reflection of how she, like many before her, had to hide the truest part of herself to protect her career. In her 2016 memoir, Sorry Not Sorry, Naya hinted at heartbreak, writing, "Sometimes the person you love most is the one you can't ever name." It was a sentence that resonated deeply with fans who saw between the lines. Off-screen, she poured her energy into motherhood, raising her son Josie with fierce devotion while balancing fame and personal pain. Friends described her as strong yet haunted, a woman who carried unspoken battles behind her confident exterior. On July 8, 2020, tragedy struck when Naya disappeared during a boating trip with her son at Lake Piru. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, but for millions of fans, it symbolized a deeper loss, the silencing of a woman who gave the world her talent, but never found peace in her truth. Naya Rivera's story remains one of bittersweet bravery. She helped others find themselves on screen even as she struggled to live freely off it. Her legacy, both luminous and tragic, continues to echo as a reminder that love and identity should never have to hide in the shadows. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston. The voice that defined a generation lived a life as grand and as tragic as her songs. Born in Newark, New Jersey in 1963, she rose from gospel choirs to global stardom, selling over 200 million records worldwide and earning 6 Grammy Awards. Her voice was unmatched, her beauty radiant, and her image carefully sculpted by an industry determined to crown her America's sweetheart. Yet beneath the glamour, Whitney carried a secret that haunted her from adolescence to her final breath, a love the world refused to let her live. At 17, Whitney met Robin Crawford, a confident, athletic young woman who worked at a community center in East Orange. What began as friendship blossomed into a deep emotional and physical bond. Robin later described their connection in her 2019 memoir, A Song for You, revealing that Whitney had once said, "We were two souls intertwined." But as her career ascended, pressure from her family, the church, and the record label grew unbearable. Her mother, Cissy Houston, a devout gospel singer, allegedly told her that being gay would ruin her soul. Fearful of losing everything, Whitney ended the romantic aspect of their relationship in 1982, just as Clive Davis began grooming her for pop superstardom. Still, Robin remained by her side for over a decade, first as a close friend, then as an assistant and creative director. Even after Whitney's marriage to Bobby Brown in 1992, Robin continued to live just houses away, managing her schedule and shielding her from chaos. Insiders whispered that their quiet bond often sparked jealousy in Bobby, whose temper and addictions soon consumed their marriage. As Whitney's life spiraled into exhaustion and substance abuse, those closest to her believed the emotional wound of hiding her truest love was one she never healed from. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found lifeless in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel just hours before Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy party continued downstairs. Officially, her death was ruled accidental, but many fans and friends saw it as the final tragedy of a woman who had spent her life performing happiness while dying inside. Whitney Houston's story is not just about fame, fortune, or downfall. It's about a woman whose purest love was silenced by judgment. Her voice may have left this world, but her truth, fragile, beautiful, and human, still echoes through every song she ever sang. Cicely Tyson. Cicely Tyson, one of the most honored actresses in American history, was the embodiment of grace, power, and quiet rebellion. Born in Harlem in 1924 to Caribbean parents, she rose from modeling to global acclaim through groundbreaking roles in Sounder 1972 and the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman 1974. Her performances gave dignity to Black womanhood at a time when Hollywood offered little of it. Yet behind her impeccable poise and faith-driven public image was a hidden story, one that whispered through interviews, diaries, and a single lost recording Cicely loved deeply, but not always in ways the world expected her to. In the early 1980s, while preparing for The Women of Brewster Place, Cicely grew unusually close to a younger actress in the production. Crew members recalled late-night rehearsals, the two laughing softly long after others had gone home, and a warmth between them that transcended mentorship. Rumors spread but never made headlines. Everyone understood that Cicely's reputation as a moral compass of Black cinema could not be questioned. Those closest to her described her as guarded yet profoundly emotional, someone who valued truth but lived within boundaries shaped by faith, fear, and fame. After her passing in January 2021 at age 96, archivists uncovered an unaired PBS interview from 1992. In it, Cicely said quietly, "Family is the one I choose, and love needs no title." She offered no explanation, no names, but to many that single sentence said everything. Biographers later confirmed that the chosen family she spoke of referred to a circle of women who stood by her through life's most difficult seasons. She never married again after her complex relationship with jazz icon Miles Davis ended. Instead, she surrounded herself with companionship that was intimate, loyal, and quietly defiant of societal expectations. Cicely Tyson's legacy is not simply one of awards and artistry. It is the story of a woman who lived by her own rhythm, crafting an image that balanced reverence and rebellion. Even as she preached strength, she hid fragility. Even as she portrayed truth, she carried secrets. In a world that demanded silence, Cicely spoke through subtlety, reminding us that love in its purest, most sacred form never needed to be explained to anyone. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis Hyman was the towering tragic diva whose voice could pierce through any orchestra, yet could not free her from the loneliness she carried within. Born in Philadelphia in 1949, she began her journey in jazz clubs before becoming one of the most commanding R&B and soul singers of the late 1970s. With her statuesque 5'11" frame, regal presence, and unmatched vocal control, Phyllis seemed destined for eternity. Songs like You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone showcased both her brilliance and her pain art that reflected the inner battles she refused to name. Behind the glamour, however, Phyllis lived a life veiled in quiet secrecy. While tabloids linked her to various male musicians, close collaborators in New York whispered of a different story. A female songwriter who worked with her in the early 80s was often seen leaving recording sessions with Phyllis late at night. Studio staff recalled that one unreleased duet between them, a haunting ballad filled with raw longing, was mysteriously removed from the archives days after it was recorded. Friends later admitted that Phyllis often spoke of someone she could never publicly claim, a love hidden in metaphors and midnight songs. As depression and exhaustion from industry pressures grew, her personal life became more isolated. Family members discovered a small notebook in her apartment after her passing filled with poetic entries and initials that matched the female songwriter's name. One line dated November 1994 read, "If this love must die in the dark, then at least I lived truly even for a few hours." The words revealed the depth of a woman torn between her heart and the image she was forced to protect. On June 30th, 1995, just hours before a scheduled performance at the Apollo Theater, Phyllis Hyman was found unresponsive in her New York apartment. She was only 45. The world mourned the loss of a voice so rich, so soulful that it seemed immortal. Yet beyond the stage lights, her truest performance was her endurance, the courage to love quietly in an era that silenced difference. Phyllis Hyman's legacy remains both triumphant and sorrowful, a reminder that brilliance often comes wrapped in solitude, and that even the strongest voices can break beneath the weight of a hidden truth. Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt, the incomparable Catwoman of the 1960s Batman series, was a force of nature, fierce, intelligent, and unapologetically sensual. Born in 1927 in North South Carolina to a black Cherokee mother and a white father, she never knew Eartha climbed from poverty and abuse to international fame. Her raspy purr, magnetic eyes, and daring wit made her both irresistible and feared in Hollywood. But beneath the glamour and defiance was a woman who carried a private truth, a love story erased by time, hidden behind whispers and political exile. In the 1950s, as Eartha's fame spread from Harlem's nightclubs to Paris's grand stages, she crossed paths with German-American actress Marlene Dietrich, one of the world's most alluring stars. Their first meeting at a Paris art gala sparked instant fascination. Both women were icons of independence, and soon they were seen together at exclusive salons in Paris and Berlin. Hotel staff spoke of their laughter echoing through hallways at midnight, and though neither woman ever spoke publicly about it, those who knew them sensed that their connection was far deeper than friendship. In private letters, later revealed by European journalists, Marlene referred to Eartha as "my wild nightingale," suggesting a romance that dared not speak its name. Their bond deepened during one of the darkest periods in Eartha's life. After publicly criticizing the Vietnam War during a 1968 White House luncheon, she was blacklisted from the U.S. entertainment industry. Cast aside by American studios, she fled to Europe, and it was Dietrich who stood by her, offering friendship sanctuary and quiet affection. Together they performed, traveled, and lived between shadows and stage lights. While Marlene was known for her affairs with both men and women, her devotion to Eartha was uniquely protective, almost maternal, yet deeply romantic. When Eartha Kitt died on Christmas Day in 2008, the world mourned her as a provocateur and a pioneer. But behind the legend was a woman who had once risked everything for love only to have that love silenced by history's prejudice. Her life was proof that strength often grows from heartbreak, and that even the boldest voices sometimes sing their truest songs in secret. Eartha Kitt's story endures as both an anthem and a lament, a testament to the woman who purred at power but whispered her truth to the moo. Ruby Dee. Ruby Dee was a woman of fire, intellect, and courage, a performer whose life mirrored the revolutions she fought for. Born in Cleveland in 1922 and raised in Harlem, she emerged as one of the first black actresses to bridge theater, film, and civil rights activism. Alongside her husband, Ossie Davis, she became a symbol of artistic integrity and moral leadership. Their partnership was celebrated as one of the longest and strongest marriages in Hollywood, a model of loyalty and love. But beneath that public perfection lay a private truth. Ruby's heart carried a secret that history would only begin to understand after her death. In the early 1970s, amid the height of the sexual liberation movement, Ruby and Ossie made a bold and unconventional decision to have an open marriage. Ossie later confirmed it in his memoir, admitting they wanted to remove hypocrisy from love. But Ruby's freedom was not a mere experiment in modernity. It was a shield for something deeper. During a Harlem gala in 1973, she was seen briefly disappearing from the crowd, only to reappear later, holding hands with a short-haired woman in a leather jacket. Those who witnessed it never spoke publicly, but whispers began circulating through New York's art scene about Ruby's intimate correspondence with a woman she called My World. Dozens of handwritten letters were rumored to exist, filled with affection, philosophy, and longing, locked in a private drawer that Ruby guarded for decades. The mystery deepened at her funeral in June 2014 at Riverside Church in New York. Among the mourners, politicians, artists, and admirers, a frail, silver-haired woman stepped forward, placed a sealed envelope on Ruby's casket, and quietly walked away. No one knew her name, but those who had heard the old stories understood this was the person to whom Ruby had given her heart. Ruby Dee's legacy remains luminous, an actress, poet, and activist who changed both art and society. Yet her story reminds us that even the most fearless voices can be forced into silence when love defies convention. She fought for racial justice, for gender equality, for truth, and perhaps quietly for her own right to love without apology. Ruby Dee's secret was not a scandal, but a testament to humanity. The proof that behind every icon stands a heart that dares to feel more deeply than the world allows. Nell Carter, the powerhouse performer with the golden smile, was one of Broadway's brightest lights, but her most intimate truth remained hidden until long after her death. Born in 1948 in Birmingham, Alabama, she rose from church choirs to national fame, winning a Tony Award for Ain't Misbehavin', before captivating television audiences as the lovable housekeeper in Gimme a Break. Her laughter was infectious, her voice unforgettable. Yet behind the applause was a woman quietly fighting for the right to love whom she chose. In the late 1980s, after 2 failed marriages, Nell met Ann Quazor, a quiet, unassuming woman who worked in administrative management in the entertainment industry. Their connection was instant, a meeting of hearts unbound by fame. Away from the spotlight, the two built a home together, raising Nell's adopted sons Joshua and Daniel. To the world, Ann was just a close friend, but within the walls of their Los Angeles home, she was a partner in every sense. Friends remembered them holding hands in dimly lit restaurants, laughing like schoolgirls in love, yet always cautious, always aware that exposure could destroy Nell's career at a time when same-sex love remained taboo in Hollywood. Tragedy struck in 2001 when Ann passed away unexpectedly. Nell was inconsolable. In her grief, she rewrote her will, leaving all assets, her home, royalties, and even guardianship of her children to Ann Quazor. When Nell herself died of heart failure in 2003, at just 54, the revelation stunned the public. Her family challenged the will, arguing it was invalid since Ann had predeceased her. But in court, Nell's lawyer produced handwritten love letters and private photographs documenting a 10-year relationship built on devotion and secrecy. One note, trembling in her handwriting, read, "If it weren't for Anne, I would have been gone long ago." The legal battle ended with the estate divided, but the truth remained undeniable. Nell Carter had spent her life loving in silence, building a family outside society's boundaries, and fighting for happiness behind closed doors. Her story stands as a testament to the quiet bravery of those who chose love despite fear. A reminder that even legends sometimes had to hide to survive. In the end, Nell Carter's story forces us to question how many dreams were sacrificed for acceptance. Was her silence a choice or a survival strategy in a world that punished truth? Her love for Anne Quasar, hidden beneath fame and fear, challenges us to rethink what it means to live authentically. Can a legacy built on secrecy still be one of courage? Perhaps her greatest performance wasn't on stage, but in the quiet defiance of her heart. Shouldn't love, no matter its form, be celebrated rather than concealed?